Rajan. Yes, we're live. And Catherine, hey.
Hello.
Good morning. Okay, just reviewing what I marked down as the agenda of stuff that we can / should talk about. We are getting pretty close to launch. So Varus has been working on redesigning the requester flow. Durham just got back. Yay!
Woo!
Congratulations on what, by all accounts, was a great talk at CSCW, Mark. I don't think I saw quite so many people rush the mic for questions after any other talk. Definitely seemed to resonate. So great job on that. Okay, and then there were sort of a few decisions that I think we need to make about the platform that are important. One is essentially, do we launch with our own workers only? Do we launch with Mechanical Turk only or some blend? And I'm calling that the Stripe versus Mechanical Turk option. The second is what we want to do about whether the platform should be charging overhead. The reason this is important was pointed out to me maybe by Mark. Rajan, you're echoing.
Yeah, I had YouTube turned on as well, so I just closed it.
Oh, sorry. You're watching your own meeting. And Rajan, I would value your opinions on these as well. So maybe Mark pointed this out, but maybe it was someone else. I forget who I was talking. Once we launch, like if we have an overhead rate that we're advertising, it's really hard to change that. That is, especially to go up. If we're like, hey, we're like an academic project, so it's like, 10 or 3%, and then we're like, oh wait, actually to cover costs we need it to be 20. People are not going to be happy about that, so I think we need to think deeply about what that would be. And then the last one, which I think is maybe a bit easier for us to figure out, though we can decide, is whether we launch sort of web only, meaning that you can only launch stuff through the web interface, like what you all have been working on recently, whether we have API only, or whether we do both. Back over the summer, we had thought API only, Mechanical Turk only, right? But in the meantime, Stripe has sort of changed. Stripe and lots of other things have happened. So I sort of ranked these in the order in which I think we should talk about them. In particular, I think the requester design flow should be the first thing we talk about because it has implications for engineering. So let's start there. Varus, do you wanna drive?
Sure. Yeah, I can. Do you guys want me to like walk through the flow that I just sent? I can also share my screen quickly.
Yeah, go for it. This is what you posted to the design channel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were. I was showing this to Durham yesterday. So I think could you focus on just what you think has changed?
Yes. So there are two major changes. So one would be the PView mode, which earlier it was like a separate flow. Now it's like integrated with the task creation flow. So here you have. Can you guys see?
Yep.
Yeah, if you widen your window a little bit, it'll maybe show up a little.
Here.
Yeah.
So here you can see the two toggles between the creation mode and the preview mode. So right now it's all integrated into the task creation flow. So you can toggle between creating your task and previewing it as you go. So this is like one of the major changes, and the other one was this guy over here, the approve and rate flow, where there are two ways you can rate workers. One is rating by workers, and another one is like rating by similar tasks. So by rating similar tasks, you click on this like see other workers' responses, so you can compare like tasks.
Right. So I remember now we had talked about this. So if we were trying to figure out how good the worker was, the idea was that you could nest inside, so you could say, what did other people say to on this same?
Right.
same-
Exactly. Yeah.
But now this is doing a group by worker rather than a group by task, right? So the outer organization is by worker, isn't it?
No. I mean, if you're doing similar workers for this task, it's by task.
Similar workers by task, and it's this task. So I think the the goal was that we would have people. What's the difference between that slide, this page here, and the one under it?
So the one under it is when similar tasks are nested. So you can compare similar tasks instead of like comparing, instead of like rating by workers.
I think in the previous one, the second and the third task will not be there. That is the
Yeah, my so let me pull this back open again. So this is the zip in the design channel. Come on. So the high level goal here, right, is to essentially do a group by worker, yeah?
And also have an option to, if you want to see other similar tasks, you can also do that as well.
And how did you get there? So if I say I want to see other similar is it when I clicked on see other workers' responses?
Yeah,
it sort of
right. It sort of expands.
Oh, that was okay. I didn't catch that. I see. Did that make sense to you? I didn't catch that originally.
Yeah.
So I click the.
When you click that, you have what we have now.
When you click this, it takes this task, yeah, and then it sort of expands and fills. Yeah, well, it's still grouped by worker, but it's by worker, but now expands the task within it.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So you're still grouping by worker. You're saying.
No, but you're still including other workers in this particular card, which is including the task.
You are, but only for comparison, I think. So Varis, one piece of feedback I would have here is I think since we're asking, I think we want to ask them to make one overall assessment of the worker, not an assessment per task that they submitted. Yeah.
Overall assessment. Wait, Michael, can you say it again? Sorry.
Yeah. So when we're like, there's a chair here. Grab it. So when we're like, we're gonna please rate 5 workers. So let's say there are 5 workers. There's Shirish 1, Shirish 2, Shirish 3, Shirish 4, and Shirish 5, right?
Right.
Yes. So it's select those 5 workers, and now we're looking at Shirish 1, right? And the goal should be for me to provide a check plus, check, or check minus rating for Shirish 1. And right now what I see are check plus, check, and check minus ratings for each task that Shirish did. Really be pulled out to the worker level. So we're only doing the rating once for the worker. The ratings per task, I think, would just be by default, everything's accepted, but you can click to say, return for revision on individual tasks.
What he has on top is what the button should be.
Right. Yeah. So the stuff you have on, so what Shirish is saying is the stuff you have on top, those almost should be the buttons, right? Like those are the options that I should have.
Right. So yes, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just one second. In that case, wouldn't it be better for us to see like various instances of work by one worker?
Yes, that's what he's doing. He's grouping by worker. So if you look at it,
sure. Okay.
It's all, essentially it says, please rate Shirish 1. Here's all the work they did.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong page. That's what was wrong. Okay, cool.
Go ahead, Varis.
So yeah, so the top 3 things, the love, keep, amen. I think that's just to explain what the consequences would be if you rate the worker check plus. What does that mean? So just like I think last time we talked about like providing some sort of like explanation for.
Yeah. I like that a lot. So I think what we can do, here's just an idea. What if we, so that there's that gray Shirish1 name, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can we pull those out into a higher level header that's just like, that's outside of each of those cards, that basically is just like, all of this is going to be Shirish1, you know, and then Shirish1, I have three options: check plus, check minus, and then that becomes sort of sticky, like scroll spy, you know, as I'm scrolling through Shirish's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Can you sort of picture what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I'm actually drawing it out right now.
And then we can get rid of the check plus, check minus
Per task, yeah.
per task.
How many tasks of one worker do you see here?
Everything they did for that project.
For that project.
Yeah.
And you see 5 of these workers.
No,
So arbitrarily we're saying 5 for now.
So
already.
now, if I want to see comparisons for Shirish 1, let's say,
Yeah.
and it shows me the 4 other people that are also below.
So what it does is, if you're like trying to figure out how good Shirish1 is, you look at this task, and for this task, you'd be like, well, did he agree with the majority? So you unroll this, and it shows you the other workers and what they said for that task. And if I want to keep comparing, I can sort of unroll.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yes.
my question is, do we have duplicates in this page? Compare Shirish 1 to Shirish 2, and then later Shirish 2 to Shirish 1.
It's possible, I guess. So it's possible, for example, let's say we select. So let's say we have 100 workers and we pick Shirish 1 through Shirish 5 because we forgot to initialize our random number generator. And so what we do is Shirish 1 and Shirish 2, let's say that they've done the same task at some point. So when I'm rating Shirish 1, if I unroll this, I would see Shirish 2. Later, so then I rate Shirish 1, and then I scroll down, and now it's like rate Shirish 2. And if I look at that task, I might then, I think the answer is yes, I might then unroll that task and I see Shirish 1's answer to compare to.
So other ratings would be attached next to Shirish name as in a header, right? So because we're rating the whole batch, okay.
I think we have one sticky header that's like, here's the person, here, and here are your 3 options.
Right, okay, yeah. I was imagining the same thing, okay, good.
And then the only things that we need to, well, so here's a question maybe open for everyone. Do we want to separate this from approval? So, you know, we have this option to say like, you know, yes, you should get paid, or no, this should be returned. What we could do, for example, is we could give you the option to mark any of these for return. And then after you submit these, we then show you, we say, here are all your results. You know, go ahead and return anything you need to. Otherwise, we'll approve this, you know, in an hour or something like this. I'm trying to figure out how we avoid having like 2 huge steps where one is like rate a bunch of people and second is review all the work.
We can move that amend within the task.
I think amend should change to bury. I liked how Spam Girl came up with that, but the problem is just that here we're only going to look at 5 workers, right? Although we'll let them do more if they want. By default, it'll be say 5.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the function where they want to actually look at the potentially return anything bad back to those workers, right? So we need a page after this, I think, that says, and now here are all of your results. And if you see anything that you don't like and you want to return it, here, you know, go ahead and mark. This might look a little bit more like what Durham had built previously.
Don't you think it would be good to do the approval first? Because then you've already sort of seen the work in the context of the work. And then you can go through a list of workers and be like, oh, that guy got 2 things rejected or something like this. And that sort of gives you some context.
I can see an argument for it. Here's what I was thinking sort of implicitly. I don't know if this is right, but here's what I was thinking. If we have you rate workers first, then there's sort of this carrot that we're providing where it's like, hey, you want to see your results? First do this.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
And if we show you your results and let you run away with it, then we actually don't, then there's no longer really any incentive. That's why I was thinking that you rate first.
I think that's reasonable. I just think of like, I mean, you know, when you're teaching a class, you never would tell the students what grade they got before you graded the test. And it's a little bit like we're doing that. It's not quite like that, but like it's a little bit like we're sort of rating them on some aspects of their work without actually having determined whether or not they had failed each of those tasks.
I would view it the opposite way. I would say that it's in a teaching context, it would be like once people turn in essays, you grab a few random ones and you read them really carefully in order to establish like your benchmarks and your
baseline.
And then you can go and look at all the other ones.
I was wondering if we could merge the two steps, because right now it seems like you have to do you have to go through like two steps, right? Like you rate the workers and then you like either approve or disapprove them. Is there a way to merge the two flow? And while you like going through the task at the task level, you kind of say like return or like, or would that be too much?
I think you should be able to ask for return on this rating page, but that you're only going to get 5 of them, right? So there still needs to be a place where you get everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So my feeling would be maybe something like the following. So Mark, let me acknowledge that you may be right. I would like to try it this way, and then if it feels weird in the usability tests, we can always reverse it.
Yeah. No, I think the argument, the way you framed it, is also sounds quite convincing. So, yeah.
Well, we'll see what users think.
I'm convinced. Let's see what the users. See if the users are convinced.
So Varis, what I'm thinking is you rate 5, and then we take you to another page where it just says like, here's all your results. If there's anything that you want to, and maybe what we do is we say by default we will approve these, an hour from now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if there's anything that you want to return, then just sort of, this will be a big table or something like that. And you just hit, this one, this one, this one.
Right. Yeah. So you would see like a table view of all the tasks.
So if they don't do it, then the work is accepted, right? So the point is like, you're now done. Here are all your results. You can download the CSV. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. And by the way, one thing you might want to do with it is return any results you don't like.
But forcing them to do it within 1 hour.
Okay, I could see an argument not to, but in general, Mechanical Turk does have a default where it's like 24 hours later they are auto paid.
Auto accepted.
My one worry is just that people won't remember to.
Every few hours.
We could, but I think we still need a default. Like I think this is something that needs to opt toward the worker in the worst case. So there needs to be something. And I don't think that this is like an advanced option that I particularly care to program into the system right now, especially since you could in theory like delay it to like a week or something like that on Mechanical Turk, and workers hate that.
Right. So Michael, just to reiterate, so the task authorization, after they rated the workers, then they come to this page where they would see a lot of tasks again, right? They see all the workers, the other tasks they did.
Yeah,
right?
I think what they come to is they come to a page that basically says, here are your results.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, like you're done, like I'm almost thinking of it like the your ta-da page where it would show you, if this were a Google form, this is where you go and look at the spreadsheet of all the entries.
Mm-hmm.
And here we want to let them download a spreadsheet of the results. Maybe we have some way of viewing it. I mean, you had already built something that had like a left nav and some other stuff, but there may be other ways too. The point here is that we just want to let them browse the results if they want.
So what is the purpose of this view? Is it the rating or
Rating.
Approving?
This is only going to be for rating.
So you cannot return from here.
I think we could let them if they
So
really.
That's where it kind of mixes it.
Well, here's my feeling: is the return. I don't think this page is designed for returning, but since they're going to be looking very closely at it, they might be like, I want to return this. So we could give them a small option to do so in the corner, like not make it part of the flow, but sort of an advanced option.
So would
if
they
they
have
want
to rate that person or no?
They would need to rate them. So
First they would say, okay, this is a bad worker, and then return them.
So what they would do, let's say it's a good person. They would just be like Shirish 1, check plus, and they go on, right? Let's say it's a fine worker. They'd say it's Shirish 2, check.
Yeah.
They go on. If it's a bad worker, what I think they would probably do is they would like keep, they would give them a check minus. They would keep the ones that are okay. And then they would maybe tag a couple as return and go on. Or they could just give them a check minus and go on without returning anything if they're just willing to pay them and say, don't come back.
Could we give them an option of keeping some of them in hold and return later when they get all the results?
They should have all the results. Well, maybe not. I guess the question is,
Yeah, they're only
Sometimes people-
seeing like 5 at this time.
They choose to return someone from this and they get the final results. They already have some of them checked, the ones that they chose to return previously.
that's true. The
So
ones they
probably, those will be highlighted in red. Like you chose to return them in the rating process.
Yeah,
I have like a
possibly.
mini proposal.
Whoa,
What happened?
your hood.
Oh yeah, it's I'm on the dark side.
All right, go for it.
All right. So yeah, so I have like a mini proposal. I think this view where we're rating workers allows us to deeply analyze the work. And I think if we could perform the same actions as rating the work or like approving or rejecting or returning the work, all of those actions and maybe even like the identical interface on the task level for these would allow it to be the case that the requester wouldn't ever have to think about this as doing work twice. So those preferences would then, so like whatever they click, if they decide to click on any of those buttons, would appear again in the next page when it's the whole spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that would be submitted until the spreadsheet is submitted. So like,
Say that second half again. I don't quite understand yet.
so basically they'd be able to express these preferences about tasks and they'd be sort of saying, oh, I'm going to reject this one, I'm going to accept this one, I'm going to return this one, whatever the options are called. And this is in the context of rating the worker because they're looking very carefully at these. So this is the first of the 2 steps. And then they say, okay, I've rated these 5 workers, click, go to a page that's a spreadsheet, and any preference that they've just put in about tasks already from those 5 workers is already expressed in that spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they don't feel like they're doing the same work twice. They feel like if they had seen something that jumped out to them as good or bad, they've already stored that data and they're not sort of worried about the sort of finding that again. But similarly, none of this actually gets executed until they finish dealing with the spreadsheet. So like the I'm done button on the spreadsheet is when it actually sort of gets submitted or whatever, gets pushed over to the database.
So Amar, how would it store your preferences after you rated 5 workers?
In an interface that looks relatively similar to whatever the interface of the sort of spreadsheet sheet will look like.
Right. Yeah.
Or the results sheet will look like.
One other option, I'm just going to take this to the logical extreme, is that you rate 5 workers in this interface, and then you say, okay, and it comes and it says, all right, and like everything else appears in this exact same interface. So like, it's just like, and here are the rest of your workers. You can do them if you want, or just download the spreadsheet here. So like, then it becomes, so now we don't have a different interface that you have to deal with. It's just sort of like, and here's everything else.
Right. I like that idea. It's, yeah.
You have to shift between workers, right?
Yeah, so in this screen, they're sort of, it's still, it would still, in the new one, it would still be grouped by worker, but it would sort of like, bum, 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 so it just unveils everyone else and you can check plus, check minus anyone. And there's still little small options if you want to return.
I'm saying that in this also they have to like there will be some carousel like to shift to second worker, third worker.
Yeah. So Varis, what Shirish is saying is that as when you start creating that higher level header, that Shirish 1 check plus check minus, it would also be helpful to have some easy way to shuttle between workers, so that you can just hit the right chevron and it scrolls down to the next worker.
Right.
Like a keyboard
Okay.
interface,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe.
It like jump cut you to the next worker, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is available when all your tasks are done, right?
Right. So I think the next question that I was thinking about is what happens. There's sort of a monitoring view, Varis, that we haven't really thought about. Like, what does this look like while you're waiting for your results? So like, let's say that you have like 15 of 100 complete.
While you're waiting for your results is a perfect time for you to rate workers. Although it doesn't give you perspective over the whole set, but it's a great time when people are like anxious to think about their results, but can't really do anything else. So just like force them to rate their workers.
We talked about batches. So how does it work with batches?
I mean, I think if they're
I
so
mean, right now they can do that.
So Durham was asking like what happened, like we might consider doing batches, like so that Boomerang has a chance to play out. If you do batches, then I think it's simple because then it just does this,
I mean,
right?
like how many times do we ask?
I think we would rate them, we would ask for it every batch, right? Because that's how Boomerang will actually start doing well. I agree with you, Mark, that maybe the right thing to do is just to have this look like the monitoring page, or have this be the monitoring page as well, and say like, hey, rate people, stuff is coming in. The only thing that this would give us a little less control over is that if we wait until the end, we can select the workers that they rate so that we sort of get a good sample across all workers. On the other hand, maybe we don't care about that yet.
Just to briefly ask about something. If we rejected a bunch of work from a given worker, I think the presumption would be that workers, we don't really like that worker. Are we going to do anything sort of predictive in that sense? And is there sort of a way to visualize those predictions? For example, like as you're going through accepting or rejecting work, if you end up rejecting some worker like every single time, does their like worker preference area sort of start to change color or start to indicate that this worker is like really inconsistent for you?
Maybe. I think the first thing I would do is I would look empirically at how people are using the system.
Yeah, sure.
People are returning a bunch of work, but still giving that person check plus for some reason. Then I think we start to change the design. Yeah. But hopefully that won't be the case.
I mean, it can happen like when you're writing some essays, so we might send it back like these are the, but he likes what is written there, so he wants some corrections to be done. So.
Yeah, so it is possible that, like, for example, you post the task, you return it because they didn't quite get it, but then they figured it out after that, and then you give them a check or something. So we should let people change the rating. So Varis, I think there are. So here are just some detailed things that we need to build in, maybe other screenshots. One is what this page looks like while the results are still coming in.
Yeah, I have that option over here, but I don't know if it's the right approach. So it's just like a waiting screen that says that like once the worker results are ready, that it would be shown here.
Right. So I think now imagine what we need is a page that's like, now imagine that you have 10 of 100 complete or something like that. First, we need to show that progress. And second, I think we want to try and integrate it with this review page.
Right. Okay.
So that's one I think thing we want to do. The other thing that I think this design spec doesn't quite clarify yet, I think it's related. So let's say that I choose to return something. And then the worker revises it, right, and resubmits it in this interface.
Right.
Do I see both versions? Does it look a different color because it's revised? So I just want to think what that
I
looks
could
like.
think about that. Yeah. Okay.
To the same end, the prospect of using this as a monitoring interface to some degree requires us to have a way to see what tasks are new in that interface. And so there might be some commonality between what's new and what's been revised in that way.
Right. So while the task is still running, it feels like we need a small pane here that sort of describes the overall progress. So it's like,
Right, a progress bar. Yeah.
Yeah, and Durham, I think you had built something that had a little bit of that, right? Where it was like 5 of 20 are done, that kind of thing, right?
We all do.
Yeah, so you can go look at what's deployed and operation if you'd like.
Right. So right now I had a little, like progress thing on the left, but it's like very visible. It's like 10 workers approved out of like 45 or something. But
right. I think, yeah, imagine that now I'm a requester who launched the task and I'm eagerly awaiting my results.
Right.
So it's like, how close am I being done? Okay, so to be clear, Varus, I think this is actually very close. Like these are all details. Yep. So I think this is enough for us to start moving ahead with an implementation while you revise.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I would revise. I take all this feedback and revise before next week. Over this weekend, I would work on it.
Okay, so maybe we can start working on the basic page structure and implementation if we get there in time. Sound good? Forrest, do you feel like you have what you need?
Yeah. I took a lot of notes. I'm gonna revise it accordingly.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. Thanks, Varus.
Yeah.
Where did Slack go? Let's see. So that was great. Durham, you're back. Yay. That was that item. Mark, great job. All right. We already talked about these things.
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a few things that you might want to say. Like in passing, you're like, maybe we can talk about some stuff, some thoughts that you had after, but we never met up again. Just wondering if you wanted to share any of those, or if you want to send me a note.
I had on the talk?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not. It's fine.
I don't remember that.
If it's a no. Okay. No problem.
Okay. So let's start. So we have 10 minutes. Let's start talking about the population. I'm happy to schedule an ad hoc hangout to continue these so that we don't have to wait for next Friday. So let's outline the shape of this next decision. We're going to launch Demo. We need to make the thing as simple as possible to understand. We have to think about like what is going to
Make people start using it.
Yeah, like what's going to attract people. And
We could have a video.
sorry?
We could have a video.
Oh yeah, certainly we can have all sorts of cool stuff, but this is a decision we have to make on the product side, essentially, quote unquote. Do we launch only with our own workers and Stripe? So Durham has built a vast majority of the Stripe integration now. So do we launch just with those people? Do we launch with no Stripe and none of our own workers, and just as a layer on top of Mechanical Turk? So everything you launch is just goes to Mechanical Turk, and the basic win is Boomerang that gets layered through this crazy thing that Durham built over the summer to actually launch Mechanical Turk tasks. Let's start there. I fully acknowledge that it's possible to do both. That is to say that, we have our own workers, and that if you can't get them, then we'll cross-post to Mechanical Turk, or that you can, in an advanced option, cross-post to Mechanical Turk, just by flipping a thing and saying, like, actually, I want Mechanical Turk workers. But let's, for the moment, talk about what the default should be, right? Here are the basic trade-offs as I see them. Using Stripe, e.g. our own workers, very happy because workers on Mechanical Turk can't get paid, can't even get onto the platform, all that kind of nastiness. And Stripe does have some geographic restrictions. I forget the details, but they don't have this weird restriction thing. We can also curate a set of workers who we think are good, right? So we can have closed invites for workers on the platform and only recruit people who we think are awesome. The downsides are that we probably won't have that many workers, right? So let's say that we have 40, 50, max 100 when we launch, right? Unless they're super active, a lot of tasks may not have enough workers around, and tasks will also move more slowly, right? So we would then need to commit to growing our worker pool. We would have to put efforts into growing our worker pool as we get bigger and bigger tasks, right? So it's simpler, it's a simple model. It's like we have our own workers, we'll manage them, and everything happens on our platform, right? There's none of this Mechanical Turk terms of service shit about what works and what doesn't and blah, blah, blah. Everything's our own platform, our constitution. Downside, people have to create Stripe accounts, and we might not be able to scale as well. Other option, we go Mechanical Turk only. And it's we are a nice way to use Mechanical Turk. We have 20,000 workers. We're a layer just like Crowdflower was, right? We have instant access to every worker on Mechanical Turk. We cross-post everything. So we have scale immediately, and people know what it is. It's just oh, it's Mechanical Turk, but a different interface for it.
And do we move off of Mechanical Turk later?
We might then move off of Mechanical Turk later, yes. So then what essentially Demo is it has all of this boomerang and quality information that it's building up over time, just like Crowdflower did, right? So Boomerang exists on top of Mechanical Turk, but that's it. So upside here, scale, it is fairly clear what's going on. Downside, there's a huge overhead that Mechanical Turk puts on the cost, right? If you can't get a Mechanical Turk account, you can't use Demo. And what was the other one? Oh, you sort of have to be a developer to get in because we need your Mechanical Turk keys, right? And that is kind of hard to get. You have to go over to the the AWS thing, do some permissions, janking, and it's complicated. I think a lot of psych PhDs would probably just be this is weird, I'm out, right? Because it's harder than Mechanical Turk in that aspect. So the question is, which of these do we do? Opinions. Durham wants Stripe for what reason?
Well,
So
we're going to have to switch at some point, right? To our work.
Yep.
And I don't think that going with Mechanical Turk now will help us in any way. We're going to have to do it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Better we do it now.
The second reason is so we want few workers right now, right? Maybe 100 or maybe even 500 or 1,000, right? So I don't see a reason why do we want the whole worker pool, whereas we are focusing on some specific tasks which will launch, right? It will not be that they can launch any task. The requesters will not be doing all sorts of work at the onset, right? So another thing is that Mechanical Turk will be putting that overhead, which we are not incorporating in our payment. So
Mhm.
the requester doesn't know like what he's paying. So he's just like putting that, okay, I want to pay this much. But Mechanical Turk puts overhead, which we'll have to bear anyways.
Mhm.
So
My second
So-
reason would be,
1 sec, Rajan, and then
Yeah.
once Durham is done.
would be it's better to put efforts on, I mean, rather than just accepting all those restrictions for Mechanical Turk and always being limited by them.
Okay. Good. Rajan.
Yeah. So I guess I'll agree with Durim and Shirish here, particularly because I've also been talking to a bunch of new startups which are growing in this space, like Scale API, Crowd AI, which came out of Y Combinator. And what they're trying to do right now is not to piggyback on Mechanical Turk, but have their own crowd because they have to pay extra cost to Mechanical Turk, etc. But also they lose control over quality and over the crowd on the long run. So what they're trying to do is that they're trying to get crowd on board and build their own community so that they can control quality and have more work around that. And so because we will be starting small, like we won't, I think, get hundreds of requesters at once. I guess we may want to have a balance of requesters and workers, so that we don't get so much work that we don't have enough workers, and we don't want so many workers and very less work. So I guess we want to scale from the both ends. And because we may be wanting to start from the universities, I felt that there was a lot of interest, for example, in CSCW. Like people also reached out to me later from UW, etc. So if you're just using universities as our starting point, we may be able to manage that level of scale because you're not opening to the rest of the world instantly. And we may be able to curate crowd accordingly. And so because, like this is all same community eventually, like these crowd they're mostly, they may be from Mechanical Turk anyways. So you spread a word and like more people may join in, etc. And so
do we want to have an invitation, like any worker can join the platform, or do we want to start with a closed set and then like we have to, maybe we give workers invites or something?
Yeah, so I think we should start with closed invite or something like that, because if we open up, who knows, like if it gets instantly viral, it may we may have like say 1,000 members join in like within a few weeks, but we don't have enough work for 1,000 people. So then they'll be upset and they may not come back again. So rather than losing those people, we can just make them curious about what's happening and then add them in waitlist or something.
Okay.
So I'm in the favor of like having everything within Demo's ecosystem.
Okay, so here's what I propose we do. I will schedule an ad hoc hangout at some point, maybe, I don't know if I can do over the weekend, but maybe early next week. And we will continue having these discussions. In the meantime, I will put a poll in the Slack, and you just vote for whatever you think right now.
Are we out of time now?
Yeah, I have to go to it's actually a program committee meeting for Collective Intelligence.
Cool.
So the reviews were due on Wednesday. So we'll continue this early next week, I hope. Varis, feel free to schedule another design hangout as well.
Right. Maybe next week when I've done the revision over this weekend.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Rajan, you can end the meeting here.